A special meeting of the Lakewood County Council to order this Wednesday, February 20th, 2019 at 10 a.m. I want to thank everyone who's here. I see our high-quality staff are here today to join in the discussion, and I appreciate you all being here and a couple of members of the public. With that, I want to thank Shannon and Sam, for doing what I think is a pretty thorough job on getting us this far into the capital budgeting process. I think we created sort of a model last year, and you guys have followed that, and I think it's looking real good. So I am excited about moving efficiently through this discussion before noon, hopefully. And I think, Shannon, you're going to kind of kick it off and then turn it over to Sam, and he's going to take us through here for a discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Exactly what our mayor said. One of the things we want to try to do is get in a process that is consistent and repeatable year after year after year. We've had a number of years where we've tried different approaches to the budget development process, and we want to make sure that we do that. One of the things I want to point out is, as your budget officer, I worked with Sam to establish the calendar, as you guys have requested at the end of last year. So we developed the calendar with set dates. And so now we're pretty much letting Sam lead us through this development process. And so that's where we are today. So hopefully we can go through it in an efficient manner. But what you have before you is a draft, and so we'll be adjusting this again today based on your input. As department heads come up and have this conversation with you and justify their requests. And I think this is a partnership. This is between council and the department heads and your budget development team. So that's where we are. So that having been said, I'll turn it over to Sam.
All right. If I may, I make a motion we adopt the agenda.
Okay, that's good. That's all right. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, so we have a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? All those opposed, same sign. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Just a little housekeeping. I've given everybody a handout, and this is in the little packet, but you can follow it. It has the breakdown of departments and the projects itself. So the details are in the packet, but instead of shuffling paper, you can follow with the details. Basically what this little packet has is separated by general fund and water and sewer fund and the hydroelectric fund. On the first page here, we have last year's requests. These were all the requests, but not all of them were funded. The highlighted yellow are the ones that were not funded. And we ended last year, and our capital outlay was $632,600. And that's kind of a benchmark that we want to hit that ballpark this year. Of that 632,600, 102 is financed. And what I need to say about financing capital projects, as far as the budget goes, it's kind of a wash. We on the revenue side, we budget the proceeds, the loan proceeds, and then on the expenditure side, we budget the actual capital item. Where it hits the budget is debt service, so it will affect our budget, our operating budget in the years to come, depending on the length of the loan. Used to be loans were about 20 years. It looks like the banks are lowering that to 15 years. When we go out to loan on vehicles, it's usually 3 years. This year, we are paying off one vehicle, and next year we have 4 vehicles that we will pay off. Let's keep that in mind. And also, the nice thing about financing vehicles is that we don't need LGC approval for that. So
So Sam, on this chart that you had, this is 632,600 was what we anticipate, or what has been spent
For this
so
year.
far.
Yes, well, this was adopted last year for
Right.
capital, in the general fund. So that's what we spent on capital outlay this year.
This year.
Yeah.
But this year is not, this year is over, right?
Right.
This year.
Well, budgeted.
2 years.
Right.
Right, so is there anything else that we would be looking at here in this schedule that we would plan to spend? Or are we done spending for this year?
It's already been appropriated.
Okay, so we're done.
It's just a guide.
I was just trying to get at, was there anything else on here that, because we're not at the end of the year.
That's right. Now, some of these projects that weren't funded last year might show up this year.
Okay.
So when we say appropriated, it means that we have it to spend this fiscal year. Doesn't mean it's been spent, just means that it's in the budget to be spent. So we expect to spend the 632.
We expect to.
The 632.
But we may not have already written $632,000
Exactly.
in checks yet. Okay. Just, and so still the things that are yellow are things that we don't plan at this point to write checks on.
That's correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
So let's start with the general fund. In the administration, we do not have any capital expenses this, and by the way, this is a 5-year plan, so we've tried to budget out 5 years of projects. The administration has not, we don't have anything budgeted this fiscal year. We put in for next year HVAC system for $25,000. I know that, and Bob, you probably know more about this than I do, that the units will, as far as the Freon and all that, we need to change over once they wear out. So
These probably have the old R22 Freon in them. The law is now that's obsolete. If you want to use it, there's a huge penalty for using that Freon. One recommendation I do want to make on this, if you would please note, go to these units, the largest units as gas packs, where it'll be propane gas. And the reason for that is they're much more efficient in usage. If you tie them into the gas lines, the generator you have can operate them. Each unit would only be like 1,000 watts of load. We did that at the Lake Ops building. So it's like running a fan motor. When you're electric, you're using 15,000 watts per unit. So please specify these to be gas packs and tied into the emergency panel. And you'll have a full, complete heating system just running the fan motor.
all right, so the next department is,
Well, wait, that's the question. The 25, is that the 2 units? Or how many, we're talking about this back here, right?
right.
And there are 2 units that need replacing?
I believe that, does that sound right, David? Yeah.
Yeah. We're
Yeah,
talking
there's
25 for 2.
This front load.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
going to gas packs.
Yeah.
Just a question on that, Watts, since Bob talked about we have to do emergencies. Is our generator that we have ample and takes care of all the load and everything that we have from the town hall now?
I think it's not powering everything, and I think it's sufficient. Sam, and David, and Sean, are you guys good with the go?
So it takes care of everything that needs to be taken care of.
I think they specified that it would take care of all this back here in the event that we use this for a shelter. But that has since been, because of flooding issues, we've kind of veered away from the shelter aspect.
So
Chief, did you have, I'm sorry, did you have heat during the last outage, long outage in your area?
No, they power the heater.
Right, so that'd be another part of this project, is make these gas packs, and then his heater should be more than 10,000 watts, so you can put it on the machine that you got out here, so there'll be some electrical, but we want to make sure that their lights, heat, and these two gas packs are not generated.
Yeah, I think that's important, this place to be able to function
You guys need to stay
without any
right here.
hiccups.
So do we want to wait till next year to do all of that, or do part of that this year?
We're talking about the rest of this year finishing up.
Right, well, no, 1920, we're talking about, this fiscal year we're talking about. And right now, all of that's for 2021.
I'd like to do, slide it forward, do this year's budget.
Maybe we want us to keep some of these things, say, okay, this is something we might want to move, and then if we get to the end of the budget and see where we land, so, okay, let's go back and see which one she wants to push up for.
Well, it won't be just a shift, you know, we know it's there.
Yeah, either way, just keep it in mind.
Just like Phil, they had no heat during 4 days. There's no reason that we got a generator to handle it.
Exactly. Plus, not from an emergency standpoint, but, you know, we have, because of our sound system and stuff, if we start having a meeting here and it's full and that thing kicks on, people back there can't on. So hopefully that we go to the new system and stuff, that'll take care of that. That needs to be a priority. We don't need that. Have the citizens coming to a meeting and can't hear. So that, I think that really needs to be a priority. That's just my opinion.
So, and that needs to be, spelled out to the contractor too, because there are things they can do if they know that's an issue, that increase the sound bid, if they know we're having a problem with, the sound transfer.
Use a variable speed panel on it, and do that.
Oh, yeah, and they can do, phone, locks underneath, or what, there's just different things they can do.
It did specify variable speed fans earlier reading.
So if we do the 2 units and the chief's unit, it's 35, and it'll cover that. Or should that even be increased for that in the police department insurance?
When the police department right now should just be basically wiring, I would just go ahead and get quotes, you're gonna be looking at $5,000.
So 35 probably still a safe estimate.
Up to 10.
Yeah.
So let's leave it there.
And you want to put that under 1920 for now, or?
Yes.
or what?
Yes.
Okay.
See how it falls out.
Put all the 35 and 1920.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Chief. The next is the police department, which he has a police vehicle replacement, a radio replacement, and mobile data improvement.
Chief, will you raise your right hand?
That's important. It's not where you are.
No question.
Please do.
We like it.
I'm totally fine with that.
Basically just tell us what kind of meters you can install. I think we might have a problem. Tell us what the mobile data, radio, we read it, but these are the new radios, the new frequencies.
Yes, sir. That's the 800 megahertz hyper radios. We've acquired some over the past couple of years. Going more after getting them, how good they work. Sometimes you get stuff and you realize more of a need. Same more primarily for the primary officers. I need to run the course. Going in the patrol room, Cat, when she dispatches out. Counties went to them, not totally, but semi at this point.
And you've got multiple frequencies on there, you change frequency to all of you still communicating.
Yeah, it's a dual band, so you can still communicate off the old VHL, and that's primarily what we're using now until we can get fully integrated across the board, cars and handhelds, and then we're going to stick with the VHL. But it comes in very handy because there are some places VHL can't get out, and we can switch over to the Viper 800 megahertz and still get out. And the officers that in the county that are using 800 megahertz now, if they get into a chase, we can't hear them, so we're allowed to switch over, or we'll switch over if we've got that capability. So they come in handy. So just ask for 2 more, you know, as they switch over. The whole basis on that is if they ever come and switch totally over, that'd be a huge lump sum at one time. So luckily we got ahead of the curve and, you know, just acquiring them slowly until we get that point. Yes, yeah,
So you get 2 this year, 2 next year, and lose the charge.
yeah.
The old ones are cheap, you can, use those for reserve officers if you need extra help sometime or something like that. Yeah, they still have value.
Yeah, and since the county's still on VHF and until they 100% switch over to the newer radios, yeah, we can still use them to communicate. They're basically communicating off the 2 bands right now. And some of their officers with the county have switched over to the newer band. When they talk on the newer band, we can't hear them. Unless we've got the officers that have the newer radios, they're not going to hear them at this point.
But it sounds like something that we would want to keep anyway, in case, you know, for a fire or something, and you need an extra radio.
Exactly. It's, I mean, the world of technology we live in, there'll be one day where they'll be obsolete, but we're sort of in that middle phase right now. We can still use them, keep them, until we get to that point where they're just obsolete.
How about you, John?
Sounds good.
We're all good on that?
All right.
You got the easy seat today? We're done.
Well, thank you. Very much.
See? That's the other David's one. The other David's.
All right. Dustin. Chief Waycaster.
Yes.
Would you please raise your right hand?
3 items.
Got 3 items this year.
The air packs, are you counting that as an honor? Last year, the board approved that we purchased the replacement of our air packs, our self-contained breathing apparatus. We have ordered those, half of them, and they are on the way. Right now, I think we're just getting 5, and I think this will add the rest. I was able to actually get 5 this year, talked to the salesman, and we piggybacked off of some other fire departments' orders that had larger orders than what we did. It came to a better price.
How'd your cost come out compared to what was allocated?
We were only going, I actually ended up getting an extra air pack this year out of the deal. It don't sound like much, but that's, one extra
You
air
got
pack.
6 for the 35,000?
I got 5. We were going to just do 4, and then we done, we got 5. Yeah, well, it's kind of important. We like reading.
Well, yes. And last year it was budgeted for 2 years, so this will close it out.
This will close it out, and it'll replace all the old packs. We did, when we purchased the engine a few years ago, we ordered new and financed those air packs in with the cost of the engine. So those didn't need to be replaced, those are new, and this will replace all the old remaining packs on the station.
Fire department expansion.
And then the biggie for me is the fire department expansion. Just requesting funds to go ahead with that project. This project will help facilitate bedrooms and bathrooms for the staff that we have at the fire department. Currently, there's 1 bedroom, and I don't know if you guys have been there. Some of you have, and seen the guys are basically taking a shower in a broom closet that we converted to a shower in the bedroom. So,
Clean bodies goes with cleaning supplies.
yeah. This is real big for us, because it will give, two people on staff 24 hours a day at the fire department, and give them their own, sleeping quarters and shower. And shower has become more detrimental to the fire service as far as taking a shower after a fire to get all the carcinogens off of your body. Cancer is now surpassed heart attacks for firefighters. 65% of firefighters will get cancer. It's not if you get cancer, or 65% will get cancer in some shape or form. So the neck, the growing armpit area is where they're finding that the firefighters are finding the most. This would help accommodate our staff to be able to have their own area to get cleaned up.
With the expansion plan, what are you really going to be able to accomplish with only $18,000 in the way of that expansion? What's the target for that portion of the expansion for just 1 year with $18,000?
So my plan is to finance the whole total project, and that 18,000 will be our aid.
My next question was that finance question?
So we would have to, it's a 270 project.
270 total project.
So we would have to budget the 270 and then finance it, and then add in the 18 for the future years' expenses and the debt service.
So the 18 is the anticipated debt for the first year.
Is that a 4% loan you calculate that?
How did we calculate that? Do you remember? Was that a 20-year loan?
That's what since you said that got dropped down to 15, I was kind of, I didn't know about that.
But it is a 270.
We'll have to revisit.
20 years would be 360, so 20 years.
That's a 15-year loan.
14.
You've got in future years 180, so that represents 10 years.
Right.
And you've got 5 others, so that's
So
a
15-year.
15-year loans, 24,000.
So the overall project doesn't, am I remembering it, you're basically building out another structure on the backside of the building?
Yes. And
So it'd almost be like a freestanding but connected,
and the reason why we're doing that is to meet the current fire code.
I remember this, yeah. Last year.
You looked at going up on the side, right? That was on the side.
If we do the residential, this is considered residential, since it's bedrooms, so it'll have to be sprinklered and all that, and there'll have to be a fire separation, between the existing fire department and the new addition that's built on. Now, the new addition built on, it'll be the new construction, so that'll be the part that'll have to be sprinkled, and that is in on the cost of that.
So let me ask you this, my experience with it, the first time I'd ever been up in there was when we had the emergency with the dam in the lake. And so, in addition to that particular building functioning as the bedroom quarters for round-the-clock firefighters on duty, it also, at that time, was serving as a temporary quarters for some of us who had to be there round the clock or for emergencies like that. And so, and I remember then, you know, we kind of had we had firefighters and we had emergency, you know, who's going to sleep in the bedroom, you know. And is there some consideration for?
During those type of events too, we house a lot of volunteer staff. So our volunteers come in, they spend it during the snowstorm. We have volunteer staff spend the night with us, run calls with us. During the Party Rock fire, we had 40 firefighters in our meeting room on cots, and we all took turns in that one shower in the current bedroom. So if you were sleeping in the current bedroom, or trying to sleep, you had people coming in and out the whole time trying to get to the shower.
Well, I just recall that that was our only, we look at where can we go, you know, and that was it, that's it in the town, really.
We were about to accommodate town hall for showers during the, because the facilities here in Oxford, they're what we're dealing with currently.
So I mean, I'll point that out, there's more functions than just overnight accommodation of firefighters potentially throughout the year. It's important, kind of a, I would say, emergency command center, if you will, or something.
Does Lake Ops have a shower facility and everything?
No, sir,
Just take it out when the other start.
David Butts didn't offer, Hillcrest.
Well, David's no longer with Lucas, David.
He is.
Yeah, that really during the, off-season, except when they've got campers there in the summer. I know you have to plan for 365, but, they've got all kinds of beds and showers over there.
We did, they did open up the camp during the Party Rock fire, for out-of-state firefighters and out-of-state like that. We were just trying to find nooks and crannies. Hopefully, that don't happen during my tenure. Let's keep that off the radar.
My recommendation here is to include it, but we'll need to go up to $24,000 a year number if one is short as 15 years.
That is 15.
Well,
John calculated it.
The number that I put on here doesn't include the 4% interest.
That's why 24 is right.
5965, what is, 15 years, 180,000, 4%.
We need up at 25,000 now. So you said it's 24 what?
23 now.
Oh, 24, okay.
Yeah, the 270 total divided by 15 is 18 a year. But that's straight out, yeah, no in-house.
So,
We'll look at that.
So Sam, in the capital improvement, going back to what you started out saying, that this is a capital purchase that's financed, does debt service belong in the operating budget, not in here? So what we would see in here would be 270 in this year and nothing beyond that, but in the operating budget, we'd have to have $25,000 of debt service. Okay.
We need to remember, I think, us and everybody in this room, that this is preliminary.
Right.
This is, we're just working on this, getting the figures together. For everything, the staff to get back together, tweak it, work it. We'll have to sit down and have another workshop to work it out. So we don't need, we don't need this.
Well, you kind of have to know the operating budget to know if we've got $25,000 in debt service to finance this. So, you know, you can't do one in a vacuum.
and so,
One question, Sam, it's not all the places that we see expenses spread out over years like this, where financing is anticipated, are you including the interest in that?
Yeah, but it won't show up on this. Now, some of these, like, I guess the police vehicles, you'll budget that amount every year.
Yeah.
And it'll include the interest.
All that will be included in the operational budget, but it won't, it's not in
Keep
here.
in mind, as we're looking at this, that even though we're looking, like we're looking at, 270,000, that doesn't
Yep.
include the interest.
That's right, that will affect the operation.
one of the other things that, one of the other things I asked Sam to do is to basically research our position relative to other towns as far as debt goes. And as you guys know, debt, how much debt we're carrying compared to other towns. And as you guys know, if you strictly go by pay-as-you-go, you're not going to be able to get as much done as quick. If you have major items, you got to get done. It's a matter of borrowing money, stretching payments out over time, but you're obligating future boards to the projects that maybe you want to get done, because that will be part of the operational budget until that debt is completely serviced. So that's another way of looking at this. If it's pay as you go, every board pays for the items that it agrees to go for. Or if you agree to finance, you're stretching that out over time and you're obligating future boards to basically keep the tax rate at a position so that that debt can be serviced in the future.
I can't recall the exact numbers, but I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. I got from Ron or Chris at the time, from Sam, the maximum that the OGC will allow for debt for a municipality, and then what our total debt was, and we were way, way low in comparison, I mean, for statewide. So we were extremely low on debt. And I wanted to, that was one thing I was going to bring up today and ask. I wanted to know where we are in that comparison after, if this full CIP was implemented, where we would be in that comparison. So I'd like to get those numbers by the time the budget rolls around. Absolutely. So, yeah.
Dan, the boardwalk that's in here, I mean, there's some heavy hitters in here that'll change our debt to equity or equivalent.
So, just one more item. Looking at this, one of the things that Sam and I had discussion about, if we're comfortable with this 600 and change bucket of CIP items, we're going to be over that. So then it's a matter of, based on what we would like to do next year, it's a matter of prioritizing those. And if you're only willing to go to 625,000 on the CIP bucket, then the other items that are lower priority will not be in the bucket. They just can't be. You can't fund everything. In the first year, you have to stretch that out over time.
But I think that number, I mean, depending on how quickly and slowly these other big capital projects move, I mean, that number is almost arbitrary in my mind to the kinds of financing that we're potentially looking at for these other big. So I mean, we could use it as sort of a milestone because that's what it was, but I think going forward, we have to kind of clean the board and look at what our real projects are going to be without trying to use it to say, okay, well, radio replacement is in there or not. Because, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a big picture here we need to get our arms around it before we can get into this level of detail.
And certainly the critical infrastructure items are going to take precedent over the other items. So, all right.
And then, the last item that I had for the CIP this year was the replacement of the John Deere Gator UTV. When I first came to work here in 2008, we got the hand-me-down John Deere Gator from the police department, and we converted it over to use it for rescue operations. So the existing John Deere Gator is a 2003 model. It was used heavily during the Party Rock fire, and we just used it this past weekend for the morning competition and some of those things.
Is that something you could hand down to the golf course if you get rid of this one? I mean, does it run and it's proper?
It runs, yeah. I mean,
He's on flat.
it beats the heck out of walking.
I'm just saying, I know how David is using the golf course, and I just figured, instead of selling, if you're not going to do anything for it, let's sell it to us. I have no problem with the new one, I'm just kind of keep it on flat land over there.
That'd be up to y'all's discretion. I'd like the option to be able to use it if we needed it.
Still be right next door to you.
If it's owned by the town,
It'll be right
yeah.
next door to you.
Well, yeah, he's right next door. We got his door.
And we're pretty good about using the track.
So you gotta pull that out of.
Yeah, I have no problem with that part of the stuff. I agree with that 100%.
So, this just prompts something I've been wanting to ask a long time about fire departments. Okay, so explain to me, you know, there are, what, 5 fire departments here, right? That are all servicing the board, let's say the board.
4, yeah.
Like, okay, 4, let's say 4. Ours being one of them.
Yes.
Okay, so they all have equipment inventories, they all have firehouses, they all have firemen. And so to the extent that the town helps to support the network of fire departments. Every year we see line items in here. We're writing checks for Bills and Craig and the Bat Cave and the Chimney Rock Village.
Fairfield.
Right, Fairfield. That seems to make a lot of sense to me, you know, that you have that network and they all work, kind of, you guys work together. You work, you know, sort of the chiefs. And so I asked a question about the equipment. To what extent do we share a pool or partner or whatever that case may be? And I say that only because I'm aware that Fairfield just a year or 2 ago bought a new ATV that they're using for rescue calls, right? So is it ever any consideration, Dustin, given to pooling things like that, or drawing on each other, where one has a particular unique vehicle that could be used to put in service, although the call might come to you, you know that it exists over there. Is anything like that ever done?
So, yeah, we're on automatic mutual aid dispatch. Just this past weekend, I pulled in Chimney Rock Fire Department with us, the standby, and they brought their ATV, and we utilized that unit as well. My only problem is when we write those checks and those go to those fire departments, I don't have any say-so in what they order or what they don't order with that money.
I get that.
So if they don't want to order something to our specs, our credentials, or something that meets a certain standard, I can't regulate that from my position.
Does the state control that? The specs on what you order for that?
So each individual fire department that's incorporated can order or buy anything that they want to. Now, whether or not they go by the NFPA standard, that's on them. And then if in the event that something happens and they haven't followed the NFPA standard, then you can only imagine what.
Would that affect their ISO rating?
It can. It certainly will. If they don't order the right equipment, they won't get any points for it as far as their ISO rating. Bills Creek and Chimney Rock went through their ISO rating with us and received a 4 along with us, and Bills Creek is currently going through their ISO rating to lower their ISO. And Fairfield benefited from our rating as well because all of Rumble Bald is inside the town of Lake Little.
So we all have a 4.
Inside town and outside too. The whole Lakewood response area, inside and outside of town, got a 4 ISO class rating. Now, for other fire departments, they benefit from us having a 4 inside town limits, such as Bills Creek. They benefit in their little Apple Valley area that they help us cover. Everybody inside the town limits benefited from a 4, but outside of town limits, they're not.
The taxpayers are inside the city limits, so that has to be our primary concern.
Yes.
What you mentioned about not having control over what other departments buy, is there, have you seen examples of things being bought that you thought were not prudent or what shouldn't be done differently?
Well, I mean, we all have different ideas on how things should operate, but different priorities, yes, I'll say that. And for us, we want something as small and as compatible as we can, but still be able to carry the most amount of equipment, get the most usage out of it. for instance, the Gator, it doesn't have a roll cage on it, anything like that for protection, but it has a very low center of gravity, and when it was produced, that was not the standard to put that on a piece of equipment. And we've benefited from not having a roll cage on our UTV or ATV because we can get into tighter areas. You can go up on the side of a hill, sometimes a roll cage being on a UTV or ATV, a tree and you on a hill, the roll cage hinders you by going past that obstacle. But if no roll cage is on it, then you can just get into the side and you're good. So it's really basically for all of us, you know, and we try to make all of our UTVs or ATVs, we try to make them compatible with these bridges that the trails are being placed on the trails. And some of the other departments don't take the width of the bridges in consideration, and they're not able to take their unit across there.
Is this narrower than the one that Fairfield bought? I thought those were pretty narrow. It looked a lot like.
Chief.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is. I was on the committee to do this at the fire department, excuse me. This is narrower than the Gator.
This is narrow, well, not the Gator, but what,
it is narrow. This unit that we're looking at is the smallest width that you can purchase it.
I think the one that Fairfield got, they had a problem with after they got it because they couldn't get up on that new trail that they across those bridges, right?
Where side did they hit?
Yeah, they couldn't go across it. Yeah.
We've got Chimney Rock, Fairfield, Bills Creek, Town Lake Lure, what's the fifth?
That's it.
That's their social. All right, so we're funding 100% of our needs. What about Bills Creek? What percent of the budget does the town?
It's
Just guess.
if I had to guess on Bills Creek, it's
Not a
probably
percentage,
like
we pay them 45,000 a year.
I understand that, so it's
okay.
about 20% of the budget. What about Fairfield?
we're about 90%.
90%. What about Chimney Rock?
We're about 50.
50%. So Bills Creek's 20, Fairfield's 90, Chimney Rock is 50%. We all have mutual aid agreements with these departments, and we're writing them checks. One of the things we don't have is a capital list of all the equipment with these 4 fire departments, and that may help us. In other words, I think where the mayor may have been going is if you have a piece of equipment, it doesn't need to be duplicated by the 3 other departments if we have this mutual aid agreement. So we may be able to create a macro list and make sure we don't duplicate equipment, but make sure these agreements are set up such that if somebody has it, if we need it, we can basically get it with this mutual aid agreement. So that would be something we may want to consider as we write these mutual aid agreements, especially if you're funding 90% of a budget, 50% of a budget, even 20% of a budget, gives us some sort of say in what's purchased. So that may be something we may want to consider that measure.
Yeah, because what we've been paying in the past is simply the money we've been paying them to provide that mutual aid without any other conditions attached at all.
Well, and some of the stuff you would want to duplicate. And,
Well, yeah.
you know, backups for your backup.
But we will know if we have a macro list, whether or not it's necessary to duplicate or not, right? And so we're writing a check. So when we have mutual aid agreement, there ought to be some
I'm
sort of
looking here
agreement.
next year, you're proposing to get a ladder truck. And I assume Fairfield's not gonna get a ladder truck, and Chimney Rock's not getting a ladder truck, and if there come a day when they needed to get up where they need a ladder truck, it would be our ladder truck.
Oh, but we're already, and it would benefit more than just these 4. That type of apparatus is out of a county bank, and you get points on it if you're within 12 miles of any district that has a ladder truck. So it's not, you don't get full credit for it, as if it were rolling out the door on the initial one, but if it was available for request.
So if we're providing piece of equipment that somebody outside of these four would benefit from, that's another way that we can say, we'll buy the ladder truck, your department will buy this, that would benefit us. There's a fair exchange, so that we get some reciprocity, and being the only one that has a ladder truck, it'd be nice if we could get something that could help us.
But I will say also that even though we have those pieces of equipment listed or inventory or whatever of all the assets, we still don't have any control over what maintenance or how those are, the upkeep of it, like we would if we owned it. You know?
So here's another thought.
I mean, then that might be something you write into the contract.
Yeah, I'm saying to you, maybe we don't have that control now. It doesn't mean they're expecting us to continue writing checks that we couldn't amend the agreement, right? To have a little more say-so or control. I don't think that's necessary, that's onerous.
Well, I just don't want to get into a scenario that I call for just picking a department. If I call for Bills Creek and say, I need an ATV, and they get there and the battery's dead and the fuel's bad in it and it's not ran in a week, and I've got control over that with our guys that they do the weekly checks that the maintenance is doing.
Do you really think that would, that's a concern?
He's smart.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is on certain pieces. I will say that volunteer fire departments, for the most part, are not ran like a professional fire department. You could expect that. I mean, there's not going to be somebody there to run the truck every single day or to make sure water's in the truck, that the pump activates, you know, that the air bottles are full, that goes on in a professional department. And there's different standards even amongst volunteer fire departments as to how professional that department is run. So that's a big.
My only familiarity with it is, my wife volunteers at Fairfield, and I know she seems like every Saturday she's going, we gotta do a truck check, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. They're always doing something, so but I don't have firsthand knowledge of what you do.
And it's hard to, even with Lake Lure, it's hard for me to even say that some of our volunteers are not as well versed in our equipment as our paid staff. You know what I'm saying? And then there's some volunteers that know a whole lot more about a certain area or subject than the paid staff do. But
you know, you've got people that are there all day long.
Yeah.
And they, you know, most of the time they're out fighting crime.
Yeah.
That they have time to more time to spend on that than volunteers for. I had never heard of a piece of equipment not being functional, but you maybe have when it needs.
Or, and it's not so much function as much as, well, it is function, but it's not so much as that as much as that's not the specific piece of equipment that I would have chosen for the town because of the certain requirements that we would place.
And I appreciate exactly where you're coming from. I hope you appreciate where we're coming from, and that not, you know, we've got just so much money to work with, and we want to make sure that it's finished.
I didn't want to derail, you know, the main focus of this discussion, but I think it's something, you know, I think it's worth raising the issue, and it's worth, as we go forward, looking into this, you know, and seeing how we could make this arrangement work better for the fire departments that are all interconnected, you know, through that. Yeah, so I didn't want to hold up this, but just to launch this.
It seems like our department has a very good working relationship, and I hope I can ask any questions that would jeopardize that in any way.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of a ladder truck, I'll tell you that. How are you gonna take a 50-something foot truck around these curves at high speed and not wipe somebody else?
Not 50 foot, we wouldn't do that, and that's another reason, I can't I'm not trying to justify a ladder truck this year, I just put it on the radar. But I want you to understand too, like during the Party Rock Fire, we asked for brush trucks. We had ladder companies showing up with firefighters with structural gear, and we're like, you come to fight a woods fire, not, you know, and that's another thing is, you wouldn't, I can't tell Rutherford that they need to order a ladder truck out of navigate the roads that we have, you know. But we would look at that, definitely want single axle, definitely would not want a 100-foot truck or a tillered ladder truck like the city of Asheville just bought, or a platform or anything like that, because it would take up so much room. But to have a single axle truck, you can get it just as long as some of, just maybe a little bit longer than most of our current trucks that we have now, and still do what we need to do.
So when you're thinking about a ladder truck, you're primarily thinking about Ingalls or Lake Lorraine?
Angles, Lake Lorraine, commercial structures, it will have to roll on structure fires for us to get points, but that's something that you can leave on the main road and get it as close to the scene as you can and utilize it. And I'm also thinking about the condos over at Fairfield, but there's a lot of residential structures in Lake Lure that's not, it's not that they're 3-4 stories tall, it's that the ground level is 3 or 4 stories. The slope is different. So the access road in, being able to do roof operations off of some of these residential structures, it would be very beneficial that way as well.
And even if you bought that, would you have to then add another bay to your building?
No.
Do you have a room for it, park?
We would, right now we do.
Okay.
I could make that happen.
I know it's not that important since it's next year. Okay.
I just wanted to put that on y'all's radar because
Just another big expense, and that's another thanksgiving meeting for the years.
Move it.
Our poor family members.
I'm all good with the 3 items from the fire department this year.
On the current.
I just want to bring up that point.
All right.
thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, Sam, who's next?
All right, next up is David. In Public Works, David has 4 projects. in Public Works.
No.
We'll continue.
Well, the first one's, we've already decided on that, right? The road, we wrote paving budget. Didn't we talk about that last year and say we were going to set up an annual?
$185,000.
Well, that was the annual amount. That was what we budgeted last year.
Right.
But I think this is too low. The paving study came out with what? 390, 375, I think it was, something like that.
They did. One thing, I will, not to interrupt you, but, you know, I told you we put a plan together and estimated by the numbers that we had received from them, which is a broad number.
Right.
The streets that I thought we could do would be $180,000 this year. We've now got bids on those streets, and we actually came in approximately $50,000 under where we thought we would be. So we will actually have a little room to do a little more. I personally am thankful, and I am a fan of this $185,000 a year, at least for the first few years, till we can see where we're going and see how much we're accomplishing and liking. And then if we see we're still going downhill, then I'd say, yes, I'd be all about upping it. But at this point, I definitely wouldn't recommend lowering it.
We had no intent.
Oh, yeah.
Making sure you had enough.
Right. I want to get through this first year and into next year's budget and see how we come out on it. That'll give me 2 years to go by. And then we can come back at that time and say, hey, I think we need to adjust this by $50,000.
Now, that does not include power funds, or it does include?
That does include the power funds, correct? So we're actually, I'm looking at the sheet here, is, like 117,000 additional, and 68,000 pound bills. So that's basically where we're at.
I just don't think we're gonna be able to maintain our asset inventory of roads and keep them in a proper maintenance status at only 185 a year.
Like round numbers.
Whatever you got programmed, that 5 or 6 little roads for this amount of money and a little extra, that is not gonna get us through that whole list in the time that the study was based upon.
Right.
It was based upon, what, 15 years? And that was at a cost of $300,000 a year, if I recall.
Yeah, I think, I don't know exactly, but I think you're really talking.
And at this rate, we're gonna extend that 15-year plan out to what, 20, 25 years? I tell you, we've got some really sad roads around here, and I don't know that that's gonna get us, keep that infrastructure up to a suitable level, honestly.
David, are you concerned that if that were increased from the 185, that it'll affect the other requests that you feel like you need?
If that was increased, no, I don't have a problem with the increase whatsoever. But at the same time, I'm trying to stay within reason. I appreciate what this board done last year. I really truly do, but I know as a whole, the town has a lot of projects going on and a bucket of money, as Shannon said earlier. So, if the town is willing to go up on the 185, I promise you, I'll put it down on the roads. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever.
Let me just raise this issue. We're looking at a new sewer system that, right now at least, is programmed to run down our roads. And we don't know exactly where in the road that thing is going. I would hate to see us be paving some roads where we're going to trench, right? So I think we should be a little careful in this first year or two as to what we do.
Well, and I'm trying to keep that in the back of my mind. Justice Road being one of the big ones that we're going to do this year. It is not currently serviced with sewer now. So the way I understand the new system is only going to go initially where service is now, if I'm correct. So that wouldn't affect by doing Justice Drive.
Unless there's a road that's on this side of Justice, and a road that's on that side, and their sewer, we need to come through Justice to connect those two.
Yeah, in that scenario, I don't think so, but I understand where you're going. Yeah, we definitely don't want to go in and pave Burnt Ridge tomorrow, and then next week come through there and trench it up and put a sewer line down the middle of it, or maybe extend water out the river, or whatever. So I agree with that.
We appreciate you doing that. So
I just think it's too little to get the mission accomplished. But on the flip side, you're right, looking at what the sewer line and installation might be.
There's several variables to do.
So it may be wiser to hold off for a couple of years at the current rate.
you see Kevin?
No, David was right. David put in the right number. I thought it was time being. I'm not going to give that to you.
I don't expect it.
I'll try.
I don't.
Okay, the truck. Dump truck.
Yeah, that's the old red two-ton dump truck we have out there. Make a long story short, it's 88 model, unknown mileage. It does still around the work, but repairs are getting more and more often. It's lived its life.
Is this a new price, this is a new truck?
I have, last year, and it would not be, this is a F700, you know as well as I do now, you can go out and buy a 550 or 650 and carry the same payload that this truck would carry back in the day now, and would even be able to stay under the 26,000 pound threshold. which would eliminate us having to have the CDL requirement. So that's the only truck that we have now that requires CDL. If we replace this truck and replace it with one with a GVW under 26,000 pounds, we don't even have to have the CDL requirement.
My thinking again here is just like you do a bucket truck,
Right.
find a year or 2 year old truck.
Right.
Anything older, with this weather we've had and grading and all these guys out there that use these trucks, they buy them brand new.
Right.
And so you could almost get any size truck you want,
Right.
something that requires CDL if they're harder.
And
But probably, just, I mean, you need a budget around 80,000.
Right.
Go out and I think you could get a nice truck for up to 60,000.
I don't care to beat the bushes. I've done it for years.
You've
Well,
already proven yourself.
yeah, the mini excavator and bucket truck is that. Yeah.
Look,
You would, yeah.
I've never done, in years past, never done it in anything minister. I understand that. And,
Is the bed and stuff transferable?
uh,
If you found just a truck frame?
yeah, and no, that is set up for a bigger chassis and heavier chassis, and that bed has as much wear and tear on it as the truck does at the end of the day. But, yes, I'll definitely entertain looking at a used truck. I don't have a problem with that one.
In a year or two, about 10 years.
Yeah.
Just take the new
One that the speed officer works on,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
and if it don't work, let's get it working so we can keep up.
What number did y'all come up with?
I round it at 80, just we, I like even numbers, so then you still got plenty to play with,
80.
80. And,
We'll see where we go.
Yeah, see what you can get.
next item for public works facility.
Yes. That, is not something that I initially put into the, budget. This was something that was already in there when I came here as part of the, Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, the comprehensive plan for the town in the future.
You put this in.
Hang you out.
That's all right. Look here, give me, I'm not saying it for anything less than you.
But you did.
I'll take the blame. It's all been,
It's been in a comp plan for some time. And I know that Ron really wanted this in here, and it's a part of the strategic move we're hearing talk of egress coming out of the state park and in our town center, and where we are now occupies a very strategic, very important piece of property real estate that we could possibly sell, repurpose. So I do think we need to be thinking this way. Whether or not this is the year, I'm not sure, but we do need to be thinking this way.
Well, it also has a big impact on the plan that was just adopted a few months back. And that was area B, was it not, or second option, or second phase? I can't remember whether it's phase B or phase 2.
And all that's kind of predicated on that being the entrance into the state park. But what we have learned is that the state park is looking to make this permanent egress. So ingress would be through Chimney Rock Village, egress would be down into our town center. So that sounds like to me that's getting traction, and so it's coming.
And the original plan was that ingress was going to be here to alleviate that traffic problem in Chimney Rock, and now they flip-flopped.
Right.
Gentlemen, this was originally studied as part of the comprehensive plan. Wasn't the decision to recommend that it go out on Island Creek Road, on the property we have out there? In that area.
Yeah, we have a couple of different plans. So Island Creek Road was one possibility, and then the last plan that was looked at and adopted was to do a public works facility on the back 9 that was never developed.
Right. But yeah, I consider, was considering all of that, kind of all creek area.
And where that was positioned, as far as ingress and egress, it may be better to come off of Memorial Highway rather than Island Creek Road. Because that way you have to go through. I know last year, we looked at possibly the entrance into the school, being able to have facilities on either side of the driveway. So that is what was programmed in the CIP, was to look at possibly using Raptor Drive, whatever that is, and having, basically replacing the firing range with a public works facility, using both sides of that driveway.
Well, irrespective of how, or when this would take place, the capital plan that's here, I think, was faulty because it shows a progressive expenditure where I would think that the only way this kind of a project would get funded would be through a debt service instrument, and therefore the capital expense would be in 1 year, not spread out over 5 years. And I would be in favor of at least keeping it in here, but putting it out, I don't think that's going to get done this year. I'd put it out a year or two, just so it's a placeholder, we know it's there. And I think the other thing that you didn't mention, we've talked about now the siting of this new packaged wastewater treatment plant, if there's some way to co-locate, public works and that, so the staffing there, and that might be something we would look at. I don't think we're too far away from making a decision on that. I don't think, so.
Lose $125,000 in that line item, but we know we're going to do it, just bump it out.
Just bump it out and put 2 million. I mean, if the cost of this thing we think is 2 million, then put the 2 million next year or the year after. I mean, I wouldn't put it out 5 years, I wouldn't put it out 5 years.
Wastewater place right out for this.
Right, exactly.
Get pad ready.
What kind of timeline is the state talking about on that egress?
We've had a difficult time trying to get that timeline. It's when you ask, well, I don't know, because the state is not giving me information. So hopefully that will solidify over the next year. I have a feeling it's going to. Because they have bought property, it's the Lago Vista subdivision that went under. They bought that, they bought additional property to basically make the connection through Lago Vista. So they have been inching their way toward what we discussed.
They don't have a master plan or projections.
Not that we know of.
They're not sharing.
I've asked for it.
Yeah, that's probably.
And while we're on this, one of our concerns is, and we've expressed this, I've expressed this to James Leatherwood, if this is going to be egress, then the area between Lago Vista and Memorial Highway is our domain. And so you put that road in without working something out with us, and people don't know where to go when they come out of Lago Vista, you're looking at a traffic jam in proportions equivalent to Chimney Rock Village or greater. So we've got to get DOT, the state, and the town working together.
Well, it kind of goes back to the bridge plan. They need to be working with us instead of working, they're doing their stuff. People we had on the phone that day and they've never been here. You can't make plans to do things like that. No one. I don't know who we see or what we do or who we talk to. Get people understanding that we don't want to hear what they spent 5 years studying that we've not been involved with. We need to be involved with it up front. However, I don't know how we make that happen, but I don't know how we make that happen.
Are they planning on putting sewer up there?
They are.
It would probably come down to egress.
Well, what I learned was that Brown Engineering had been hired by the state to design sewer so that it would connect water and sewer, so that it would connect with the town. And so I didn't realize it at the time I spoke with the superintendent, but I basically had said, you guys need infrastructure, we need communication about this we need to make sure that we can, and it's my understanding that the town, through previous town manager, has already given permission for them to connect. And so Brown did the engineering, was paid by the state park, but we basically had basically signed off saying that we will let you tap into our system.
Is that a town manager decision or a board decision?
It was made by a previous town manager, I believe. Whether or not it came before the board, I don't know. I don't recall it coming before the board.
Is that valid?
Is it in writing?
I'll have to find out. So, and this was told to me through Brown.
It's kind of like a letter we might have.
I was there too. Brown was the one that told me that we already committed. So, just
Appreciate you, keep going.
Yep, all right, well, let's, so we good on that, Public Works with we're taking out the item on the facility, moving it a year or two later, putting it in 2 million, just a round number, as a placeholder, and then we're good with the first truck replacement. We didn't discuss the second one, right? He needs that one? Yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so then we're good. You're out of the, let's.
For a minute. Hey, don't get lost.
Oh, I agree with that.
So this is basically a budgeted item that we had budgeted this year, but we just don't have enough time to get at it. So we're just going to forward this website development next year.
And we just want to ensure that our website is as contemporary as possible and as accessible as possible. And as we enhance our cell coverage in our area, we want people to be able to access our website over the phone. And that's how we know so many people access websites today. So we just want to ensure that all the information is accessible there as well as Facebook.
When you said forwarded to next year, you mean 1920? This one, what we're looking at.
We didn't do it last year.
Yeah, I think we could consider, if we don't spend money in some years, we're behind. And you know, we don't keep up every year, we're just gonna get further and further behind.
Is there any reason we can't budget the whole 15,000 for next year?
No, that would be Laura. Do we think we need the additional 5, or is that something? I believe that the additional 5 was just an add-on from the original 10,000, if I remember correctly.
I think
It's
whichever.
like a process,
Yeah, I mean,
development
that's what I'm
process.
wondering, could the whole update be done in 1 year for the 15 that's needed, or do we need to spread it to 2 years, 10 and then 5?
Well, potentially you could do it in 1 year, and I would think whichever company we end up going with with updating the website could help advise us on the app, and, you know, potentially it could all be done in 1 year. What are your thoughts?
Dovetail.
Would it, or 10,000 do it, or would it take 15,000 do it, or would it take? What do
Well,
we think?
from the little research that I've done thus far, I think updating the website, contemporizing that website could take the full 10, and then if there was any left over, you know, it could be utilized for other marketing efforts potentially. So I think it would be wise to budget for that amount.
Budget 10 for this coming budget, and then 5 for the next.
Well, and as Mr. Weber was suggesting, if it could be done in the same year.
All of this being website update.
Well, the 10 was for website updates and 5,000 for a mobile app for the town.
Which is part of
It's all related.
which is that mobile app supported.
It is.
Her explanation is here is
That's
excellent.
more important than the
I
other.
think
I
it is
think the
too.
website's pretty good, like the mobile app, I mean, it's where people who show up with their smartphones.
I think it
Got
is.
as soon as they get cell service. Got as soon as they get cell service.
Ties in with some of the projects Mr. Burton's working on to try to bring better communication to our community, and this app that allows tourists to take advantage of that new technology to basically navigate it.
Last time we updated our website, we had a lot of positive comments on it, so I agree, I think we should continue. If Bob does the mobile, I'm fine with
Moving it in there, seeing if you can get it done. If you can, if you should slide it in there.
I'd say put them both this year.
Yeah, agreed.
Ms. Creasy, how'd you do that?
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Well, no, thank you for yours.
These refreshments.
So the department heads ought to take note.
That's exactly right.
She received more than she asked for.
Quite seriously, the communication, everything comes out on the website, they go to page, Facebook, and so on, and it just improves significantly. And it's becoming a bigger and bigger, or a more important issue by the day, by every day. All the storm updates you put out, events, it's worth it. That 15,000 is an investment that can't be overstated ever.
Thank you, but I would say it's a real team effort here in terms of our communication. Our great department heads provide wonderful information and coordination regarding emergency preparedness. And all of you provide suggestions, and the town has been really good about providing suggestions. So it's a real team effort, all of our communications. But thank you very much. Thank you.
We also want to save 10,000 on economic development, because we're not planning on, we talked about it in the EDA, Economic Development Association, not wasting that 10,000 this year on that. So that helps this, helps us.
I understand. Thank you, we appreciate it.
Mr. Burton. Good morning, gentlemen.
You'll notice everything I've got is just for this year. Didn't push anything out relatively. I really do that's, for the record, I really would like to be here.
Let me tell you what staff's been told about Mr. Burton. He's a few years from retiring. He did tell us his retirement is in. One bad day after that day, he may not be there.
That's right. But
I have to retire anyway.
That's true.
We want to stay around.
I do want to stay around. The reason I didn't push anything out, being still relatively new in the saddle here, to have a discussion with the town manager and all the other tremendous expenditures the town's got. I feel like some of the things in my department may be taxed to do or whatnot, may be kind of pushed in a different direction. So I wanted just to focus on two or three priority things that I see. One was brought forward from last year, and then the other two were on the list. And then working with the town manager, kind of see how my department's going to be utilized for some other project management stuff and things. So could you bring that back next year? That was my kind of why. We only got one thing in this category. So I guess the biggie is the Duck Cove properties demolition, and that number seems really astronomical. We won the default judgment on the 11th of March. Excuse me, Ms. Hodge. Duck Cove properties, Ms. Hodge and Mr. Duraz have 60 days pursuant to the Superior Court judge's order to mitigate, abate, and take care of that site. That is probably not going to happen, although we're aware. That judgment did give the town the authority to, and I believe the wording was that the town may choose to abate that situation. As the council is aware, this has been going on since 2013. It's a dangerous situation, and it's a health and safety, life safety issue. So I thought I'd go ahead and throw it in here and run up the flag here. The number does seem a little high, but this is a turnkey price that I use some research, some phone calls to contractors, and just some gut feelings as to, you know, what it's cost. You know, when you talk about tipping fees and asbestos surveys, and we got a deep hole out there that's got to be moved, we're talking about legal fees. We're going to have some sort of construction easements or some understandings with the neighbors. There, you know, when you get down to some of those expenditures, you're talking about $150,000, $140,000. We've got the big section of CMU wall, concrete masonry wall, this thing sitting on. We're talking about probably needing some national permits because we're going to end up with something in the lake.
Brad,
Sir,
how are we going to recoup our money if we spend it on 65?
all we can do is put a lien. There's a lien on the property. Now, I did have a discussion with,
The judge didn't say we had to do it. He said we may do it.
that's correct.
So they've got 60 days, they've been ordered to do it.
That's correct. The wrinkle in that is that both of our potential contenders are, one of them is out of state, the other one is elderly and in poor health, and even if is ordered to be jailed by the Superior Court judge, I can assure you the sheriff will probably not take that.
Have you had that conversation with the sheriff?
I have not had that conversation. That's based on 10 years I spent in the criminal justice system and watching jails deny access for people that were infirm or that had equipment.
But we don't know.
But we don't know. We don't know.
If the judge would further impose some sort of order if there was no compliance, we don't know that for sure.
We don't know that for sure.
That lot will probably not be able to be built on again.
I don't know.
Don't know that. Don't know
So
that.
there may be some value there. So
There may be some value there. There may be an opportunity. I did have a discussion with Louis Morgan about, you know, if we were somehow or another able to gain title and offer and put claim the property to both adjoining property owners, that may be something that might be interesting for those adjoining property owners.
Go through the offset bid process and let adjoining property owners know that they could both bid it and divide it between those.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't that property require geotechnology?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we've done a preliminary, you know, this is an AT project. This is going to require, as I mentioned in the council meeting, there's no other stage, nowhere to lay down, there's nowhere to mobilize equipment. You know, it's perched continuously, on the hill, you know, how to crack the nut with all the stuff that's around it and how it's tied into the adjoining properties. It's going to be expensive to do.
David found an underwater platform at a cheap price.
I've had State Division of Water Quality out there within the past 2 weeks give me just kind of a gut check assessment of, you know, and they're talking about we would probably have to have some sort of curtain, you know, installed. So it's just a big expense. And I think that this.
So let me ask this. The way this order is written, it says we may, it doesn't say we have to. They're the ones responsible for that property per the judge's order.
That is correct.
If we were to go in there, and spend this money, and place a lien on the property, that doesn't entitle us to take title to the property. It says if it's sold, whatever it's sold for, we're first on the list and we can recoup as much as we possibly can toward what we've spent. Is that right? So there's no guarantee we're going to get back what we've spent, and there's no guarantee we're going to get the property that we can even quit playing to the adjoining property. Is that right?
That's what someone has no motivation. Someone has no motivation to sell it because they're not going to get any money in it.
There's no value.
Are there any other liens on this?
Yes, sir, there are 2 additional liens on the property.
Tax.
County tax lien, and the town already has tax lien on it for basically the mechanics lien.
Which lien would prevail?
That is a question for Mr. Morgan, but it's my understanding with the judicial, with the judgment in hand, if we were to exercise that option as given to us by the judge, I need to get him to clarify that, but it sounds to me like we become just as first as the tax. You know, we're moving forward. That is not in stone, that needs to be.
Exhaust everything we can exhaust, and we need to stay away from that if we can. We will not recoup the money.
One of the things
No
I think
chance.
we possibly could ask a judge to do is to make sure that if we spend this, we end up with some sort of clear title. And if we could quit claim it for a price to the adjoining property owners, that would probably be one of the best ways to get our money back. But if we don't have title, we can't do that.
I think the property owner's going to pay $125,000 fees, and you get $50,000 out of $200,000. That's all you want to get.
What is the jeopardy of this property right now? I mean, what, is it moving? Is it still heading to the lake?
Yes, sir.
Does it create is there a liability to the adjoining property owners as to what's happening out there right now? I mean, I'm trying to get my arms around what's the sense of urgency on this.
Well, it's been as it is since 2013. We've had some significant events, storm events, things that haven't. There is a kitty cat that was been by Canary in the Mine, a porcelain cat that's been sitting on the back porch of this thing since I started in 2016, and now that platform that it was on has shifted and the cat has fallen. So the structure, pursuant to also some conversations I've had with Mr. Garland Pruitt, the neighbor, it's moving, and it's moving. And so, you know, we now have there is a judgment that we have prevailed in getting that judgment.
So, we want to ask William Morgan this question, but if we've now gotten a judgment, and does the town incur through some kind of responsibility now any liability for what could happen out there if we don't take action? It may be a stretch, but I wonder if we now have bought into some level of liability by virtue of getting the judgment.
And that would be a question for you.
That's a question for him, but my problem is once we push this and we do get a quick claim or something to it, then we definitely.
Then we own that, yeah, then we own it.
That's where I'm going to exhaust everything in this first, because once we own it, now we got to do it, we don't have a choice.
We have a choice.
And that's why the county's never perfected their lands.
Could we get to the point where we own it, where we could offer it for sale as is?
Judge probably could issue.
Yeah, I mean, my concern about, you know, this judge, you know, there's the element of the concept of the taking, you know. I mean, if we ask the judge to give us the property after we clean it up, you know, would that be considered a taking? You know, are we somehow or another not giving the people due process? I don't have a JD behind my name, I can't answer that.
All that land is headed toward Triumph Bay.
All that land is headed toward our property. That is correct. So,
Has there been any kind of appraisal on the property as part of this process, the legal process? Do we know the appraised value versus what it would cost?
as it is right now, appraised value as it is right now, I have not had that done.
Probably a negative value.
There is no, it's my understanding the tax rolls are showing it as worthless. Zero.
As is.
I think so. Less than zero. I just don't want to put our name, the town's name on it until.
Well, and I think that Mr. Morgan's, you know, one of the reasons we enjoined these people and went through this process was to afford the town a level of protection. You know, we've moved forward, we're compelling these people to do something, and the way he wrote the judgment, I didn't write the judgment, he wrote the court judgment was that the town may elect to do this demolition. He did not commit the town to doing that. So I think there's a level of protection that's built in with the way the judgment is written. I don't think we've stretched our necks out in a liability situation.
Why don't we tee this up for a closed session?
Yeah. I just want to put it on here just to
Brad, you're doing a great job. No way are they saying you.
That's awesome.
You want to leave it on there, or? No. I would say leave it on there if it comes to we have to, then, yeah, we need that money allocated for it, because that is,
Not going to hurt anything, leave it there, I do
Yeah.
think we'll get it done for less money, but,
yeah.
let's just leave it there for right now.
The other items are all right? The street
Oh, yeah.
lighting replacement.
Street light replacement is brought over and,
That's your little.
yeah, that little Subaru, the transmission slipping on it right now, so I really need to start using it.
Automatic or straight drive?
It's not bad.
You're talking about putting a straight drive in, it's how much more miles we use out of it?
I actually, I'm going to get Dale Shields to get me a handful of sawdust and I can put it in the trailer. Yeah, I'm gonna get Dale Shields to get some
No, that's what
sawdust.
Garrett's.
To push it, right. No, actually, I'm looking at it, I'm trying, this number's indicative of a clean late model.
We're fine. Use it when you got it.
And one of the things we just want to keep in mind, one that's smaller, get these narrow.
That's right, and four-wheel drive, go around the street, and also something, we can get, when we go to school government for training, go to Ashland, we got reliable transportation, we get reliable transportation.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen, we appreciate the work.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Thank you, Burton.
We got Dean
Dean and
Dale in there somewhere.
Yep. Yes, what's on there?
Parks, right?
I'd just like to announce that Dean and I were working this morning on my telephone at 6:30. He thinks that boy's not on top of it, he's on top of it.
Michelle, did you get that?
Okay. You're sure.
First thing is, this is a repeat from last year. Last year I put in for a truck and a boat, looking at possible finance. The boat tanked last year before the budget season was up, and I appreciate it. Y'all really replaced it with a nice boat that'll be utilized for the police officers this summer. The second part of that is to replace the 2008 truck that I have. I'd like to replace it with a smaller, more economical vehicle that would also free up my truck for the new position of Parks and Rec Coordinator, to allow him an in-town truck for trail maintenance and maintenance around the town.
And you're going with that extended cab, you have a picture of?
Yeah, that's actually a Chevy Colorado. It's a very small truck. It'd be just the extended cab version.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
How many miles does the truck have?
Currently, it's 155,000.
So it's got some life left in it for Parks and Rec.
Yes,
A lot.
yes. When it's run locally and not as much as I have to run it, then I believe it'll have a long life here.
Chevrolet.
Yes, sir.
The motor.
I think the other thing to keep in mind, Dean is really a backup law enforcement officer for the town. Dean can be dispatched, called to assist, back up regular law enforcement. If he's not doing that, he's busy in his office doing all the things he's asked him to do. But having a reliable vehicle to respond is important.
Chief, the truck you have, is it a Colorado?
Yeah, and they've been completely redesigned. They went several years without even building the Colorado, and they've completely redesigned and fixed a lot of the elements that are in it. And I currently own one personally that's 2 years old now, and it's one of the greatest vehicles I've ever owned. It's a web.
Why do you want to buy you?
Pardon?
Why do you want to buy you?
Because my wife won't let me drive one.
That's a personal problem, I don't know.
Lord.
It's true, that is true. That's what.
Radios.
Yeah.
The radio is something that the police chief mentioned a while ago. It's the same rationale. Echo, one of the things he was talking about is our communications. I was assisting police officers in a high-speed chase earlier in the fall, and the officer who initiated the chase was from the county. and he was talking to them on that new Viper channel. And me and some of the other officers couldn't keep up with where they were at or what was going on, because it was, we couldn't communicate with that officer. And then communications would try to keep us updated, but they were busy talking to him. So it was really frustrating of us not being able to have that communications. As far as law enforcement goes in my department, I'm a one-man department, so it's a one-time radio purchase. And I plan on using this also as the mobile radio for the new truck, instead of trying to replace that unit as well, which I believe Chief will be coming back to you when they get to that point, that they'll be replacing them, and they're considerably higher than what the handhelds are.
When we take the handheld on the boat, or do it out?
Yes. No, I bring it on the boat with me.
What, your current handheld, the reserve officer use it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's the same thing that they have. It's this Kenwood. It's just on a different frequency. And it would still be used until it gets obsolete. It will be used with reserves.
Charlie, is he still with us, or?
Yes, sir.
You retired?
No, he's still with us. He's not as active as he was the first year, but he's still getting on our calendar for patrol through the summer.
Yeah, good, yeah.
More park landscaping.
Let's see, did it jump on me? My next thing was the,
Landscape in Morris Park, $6,500.
okay, yes, that's, I sat down when, since we combined the two departments, I sat down with Melody to find out what her needs are and stuff. And in the Morris Park landscaping, this is something that was kind of tore up when the paving of the walkways and stuff were done in and around the gazebo. And the gazebo is, you know, well used for weddings and stuff. And also the boardwalk that steps around the gazebo out there. It's got sheet piling as a barrier for the seawall, but the land behind that sheet piling between the gazebo and that is actually washing out. And we've gotten a price to come in and put in a French drain, and that way it will carry the water away from that sheet pile. And then probably going to put stone, like a river rock or stone in there to fill it back in. But right now there's some pretty deep caverns going in behind that sheet pile.
So that's, we'll use that money for just dressing that area up and fixing it in a couple of problems.
Yes, sir.
So Dean, there's two things I wanted to ask you about here. One of them deals with Morris Park. So I might as well just go ahead now. My understanding is that we are marching forward on a plan that connects what we're going to do to the old, I'll call them dredge pits in Morris Park, and the new park across the river in Boys Camp. And so on this side, what I understand the plan is when we're going to basically take down the majority of the existing dredge pits, leaving one section at the very end for observation area. But the rest of it, we're going to take that field, when we get a grading plan, we're going to basically spread it out to correct, some of the drainage issues and gullies, and basically raise that land a little bit out there so that it can then all be used as event space. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
My understanding was that we were going to do that project. We were going to start that project as soon as Dirty Dancing Festival was over. So it's not to mess up, event space for the currently scheduled events. And that is going to occur this year, in early September. So that project would, if we do it, it would be this year, right? But I don't see it.
The reason it's not in here is because we already have the money, part of, to fund that project. It's through grant money that's coming in through part of it.
But even if we do, I mean, it seems like if we had the money, but we're gonna spend it in this year on this capital project, would you put it in a capital plan for this year?
Put it in here and just note that the money's already.
Sam, wouldn't that, I mean, don't you think that would?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then like that, and I expect that's, I'm getting the same comment, is I don't see the Boys Camp, campground project in here at all, and I was expecting that we would try to get that project done in this fiscal year. We may have part of funds, and we could have dredging funds, and you know, so there, but I would like to see that project, program, capital-wise.
People look at it on the website.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I thought we were going to do this.
Well, where is this thing?
Okay, well, that's no problem.
So those two need to come in here, because they're both park and rec.
And Laura Mott Trail development needs to be in there at some point in that projection, not this year necessarily.
One of the things that's going to help us for getting ready to launch into the work plan for the Parks and Rec. So we'll have the projects.
Yeah. So in the next version of this, it'll be costs. Okay.
And that will affect this.
And touching back on what you just said with the Boys Camp property and stuff, we had a meeting with Chimney Rock Village Council last night, and it's been approved.
See, that, I can check that off on my whiteboard. So done.
So that's another hurdle that's out of the way.
That's good.
So I will sign that agreement part of this.
Dean, what about the thing we stretch across the road over here if it floods? Is that ready to go? If we got a.
It's actually deployed right now.
Simplistic.
Yeah, if you drive out there, you'll see it across the lake.
Can't miss it.
Yeah, we got it deployed yesterday. Now, I'm gonna leave it up for a few weeks because we're working on the system to get it put in place. And right now, we have it, a cable run up through the anchors and then have it clamped down with bolts. On one side, we want it that way. On the other side, we want a quick connect, something that we can just get up there and hook to this thing without branches and all this stuff, because sometimes we may be deploying it really fast.
Yeah.
But it's up for the viewing right now to go out there and look at it, and we'll keep it up for a few weeks and let people see it, and while we figure out the, kind of the details on how we're gonna do
It
it.
does eliminate traffic coming up the river, that's what.
Now, somebody in a kayak or canoe could get over it, couldn't
No,
they?
no.
That's right, that thing sticks.
Yeah, it's about a foot out of the water.
Yeah.
So if it was a kayak or canoe, they'd have to get off on the bank and get around it.
John,
But
there's enough field they can get off the kayak in the water.
While you're here, and because I kind of peeked back into the other sections and so forth, but I didn't see anywhere any capital budget for next year for dredging.
And that was something we moved to operational budget last year. It was
So
moved into the operational.
Even though it's, it wouldn't be a thing where it was a capital expenditure funded from operating funds, because there's numerous ones in here that have done that way, right?
Right.
Well, I don't know why we wouldn't do that, because it's a contract, right? Because it's
Previously, it was under the capital improvements, and whenever I got elected, I came to the board in the budget meeting and talked about it being an operational line item, so it would be funded every year, as opposed to getting overlooked this year. Oh, well, it's not too bad, or it's not enough, that kind of stuff. Just getting it an operational line item that we can pretty much plan on a set amount every year to keep it going. Because we had just, the council had just approved the dredging strategy and 10-year plan and had the initial contract with Robo, but they didn't work out. But if we took it out of this and made it an operation.
But if we were funding it out of operating funds, just as we are funding some of these other capital projects, and we had it in the capital budget, it would be in both, wouldn't it? Because you'd have to show the line item to fund it, which we do have in the operating budget, just the same way if we had we have other items in here, they are in the operating budget as being the funding of capital projects.
Like they're at the end of
So
whatever is capital
yeah,
project.
I'd be in favor of doing both, actually is what I am. Just so we know that we're dredging is,
That's not double funding.
no, because we're paying for it out of the operating budget, but we're budgeting, in other words, we're identifying it as a capital expense each year, funded through a contract. I don't know.
It's kind of a hybrid.
It is, it is. I understand.
It's got its own line item, so wherever you put it in operational or in a non-capital.
Well, as long as it's gonna be in, I'm okay with it, as long as it's in here somewhere, because that's like a critical.
It is.
Need, yeah.
When you think about capital, and I guess you can define it in multiple ways, but you think about something that's one time, although it may be financed, something that's tangible, something that's permanent.
Depreciated.
And over a certain dollar amount. And there's usually a dollar amount associated. So certainly the dollar amount qualifies, because that's a big item. But it's almost like paving. It's something that you're going to do. It's ongoing, you just need to commit to it.
Well, while you're there, there's a couple of other things. I don't want to upset this budget, but we've talked about several things as potential capital expenditures, one of which is barge. Is that, would we bring that up later in this discussion? Or where is that, I guess? Where would it go?
I've not done one from CIP. I've been focused more this year on getting Tim and his barge here. Definitely something I can look into and put that in.
But if we're going to try to do the SCOIS project this year, off of ours, if that's a direction we want to go in, then the question is who's buying the barge? And who's the other barges, not the one he's got.
Right, the additional for the heavier equipment.
If that could be used as a load transport vessel for dredged material that's spot dredged, there's another use for it, right?
Yes.
So, I don't know, I just throw that out there because I know we've been talking about it.
No, this is good.
Is that something the board wants us to put in?
I don't know, I don't know. I'm raising this because I don't know that everybody's aware that we've been having these discussions with
I hadn't
Tim.
heard about the barge.
Yeah.
Not that I recall.
But if we're gonna use one, we don't know exactly what type, we don't know, we don't have know enough about it to get one. It would probably be better just to have more research and bring some information.
I think so, yeah, but I just throw it on the table because it could be something between now and when we finalize this plan we should be looking at. So, Dean, if you would look into that and bring that back and with whatever your recommendation is.
I've got a couple items, but we won't be able to wait to that last. We've done a couple things for CLP additions that aren't on here.
We've got the beach marina.
Yeah, Parks and Rec, I just didn't see it anywhere else in the budget. I figured it out.
Yeah, just throwing out that we're in a similar, we need some more of these speed limit signs. We're talking, from the two out at the golf course, the ones like the Bell Boys Camp. They seem to be working well, but we talked about putting two out there and then two at the beach. They're the ones that flash at you. You can see the speed limit that says slow down. Talking about getting 4 of those, I'd like to budget about 12,000 for those. I think we're about 2,500 feet plus installation. And then,
Would you put those, do we have to get some kind of permission to put those on the, state or federal road?
we will, but they just, also 2 flashing solar crossing lights. That would be about another $9,000. Those are the ones that have strobe on, and hit the button across. And they put some in Ruth, so they're on a DOT road there in Ruth, right up there by about a quarter mile before.
All the parks and grocery.
And what you do is you push that button and 2 strobe lights come on, and the pole on each side. And I mean, you see that strobe come at you, and that's a crossing. And here at the beach, when people come around that corner, they can't see squat, and they're solar, so you don't through the wire. It goes there, so they push a button, the strobe will come out. But they're really impressive signs. Florida's full of, I mean, everywhere you go in Florida. they're fantastic, you can see them a mile away. But I think the crossing, our main crossing at the beach needs one, and
The, like standard, the DOT would have to do a traffic study, and come out and tell you to start with, where you can even put a crossing in there.
they did it in real.
Right, yeah, I was actually involved in that, right before I came here.
So now you know the process.
Oh, good, thank you.
I'm not saying it's not doable, but you do have to go through the DOT and the engineers, and they have to come out and do their own study, and then they will tell you whether or not you can put it in there and deem it as a pedestrian crossing. And also with the speed signs, I don't think the state would hold us back from that, but we would have to get that permission to it.
There's no problem, that beach is so critical, I see people all the time slam on brakes. And the reason being, it's not necessarily speed, but you're distracted. You see activity here on the right, you see another on the left, so you're looking. I just think it's for safety.
The speed limit sign, the DOT may not want that. If we wanted to do it at our expense for the safety, but they might if you try to put a different speed limit on it as opposed to what's posted. So, yeah, you do the same, but, and Chief and I have had a conversation about this a couple of times. It makes people notice and it makes them think about their speed. Hopefully slow them down coming around by the big building there on that east side.
David, I've got a question just about inside, we're talking about signs. This is like this coming down from Ingalls to the stop sign there at Larkin. Those signs are the responsibility of the state, the stop signs and all that. The reason I say that, I can't tell you how many cars I see come down that hill and never hit the brakes, especially if they're going right. Now, Bob mentioned Florida, it made me think about it. I was there 2 weeks ago, and they have stop signs that have lights around the rim of that stop sign that flash. And I think that's something, I don't know who would be, the person would be responsible for checking the state on that. But there's people who never hit the brakes when they come down. They don't see that stop sign. They're looking at the lake, or they're looking at Larkins, or they're looking to see if there's cars coming because they think it can just go on out there.
I can definitely mention that to the DOT. The first thing they do before anything is do a study.
Right.
I mean, they're gonna come out, they're gonna send an engineer out to sit there on the side of the road for a half a day or a day, count the cars, document what people are doing.
We should do that July, not.
Yeah.
They're counting something now, they've got cameras on the road.
But they're not terribly bad, but especially on the speed limit signs and stuff, I don't think that'll be too terrible. The crossing, that may be a pretty good undertaking.
They say here on Memorial Day or something.
Right, and I agree with that, but the argument I've got from them before is if you don't designate an area and people cross, they are crossing at their own free will. If you designate an area that they have to cross, you may be taking on liability because you have put them in that exact spot to cross right there.
Well, we've already done that with Ashmore Plain.
Yeah, that's right. So if it's already deemed a crossing with them, that'll help the process a little while.
We put those crosswalks where they are, or
DOT. All this will have to be done through.
You but we can still put it in here, we think it's important as a placeholder, and then we'll try to get it done, right?
You can't put a sign on a DOT facility
Without their permission.
We'll have to.
But we would pay for it, not them.
We don't know.
We don't know that.
You don't know that.
We don't know
well,
that.
it's just like on BCP. Like on BCP Trailhead Parking Lot, Lormont Development, there's grant monies out there, even if they had them in CIP, there's grant monies out there that might help them get it done soon.
No.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? Now, there's some more items here, for at least a couple big ones that we haven't discussed yet. So, the boardwalk and marina project, that's major.
Okay, the boardwalk, we've got construction numbers on building the boardwalk. We do have the actual drawings for the floating, all the floating aluminum, which will be the fishbone docks for the boats and the walkway. And now we're getting the drawings for how it will tie into land. We've already got a construction estimate at 1.3. I've got 1.5 in here. I did this before I got those numbers back. So we ended up being in this sheet here was.
This is one place.
Okay, the 300,000. Yeah, for the first year. I was
That's the
talking
engineering
total.
design, and civil design?
Yeah. And I was showing years total. We're looking at, the engineering and design is basically, that part's done. You know, what I'm looking.
Take that out.
Yeah, what I'm looking to do here is, do a financing on 1.3 and put this thing into production this year, but I would like to see that.
So one thing we got confirmed with the county inspections office. We did the marina, the landscape architect, draw the cartoons. Kim Warner then took that drawing, redrew it, put it in AutoCAD, put a stamp on it as an engineer, and then the county would accept that. Right now, we don't have an engineer stamp drawing.
Right.
Or an architect, landscape architect's stamp. So we need to verify
There's going to be something.
that we're done with these plans. We may not be.
We allocated 150 this current fiscal year for that. Engineering study and the financial analysis on the public partner, or public-private partnership of the restaurant and that kind of thing. And we got that report back. So is this 300 an additional for engineering?
No.
Okay.
No.
What's the 300 for that actual construction?
Is that the loan?
That's the one, that's going into the loan. That would be probably your.
So the 1.3 that we worked through, the debt service was about 90,000.
And I really need to redo this sheet that's presented to you because I kind of copied over what we had from last year because I didn't have those numbers and stuff. And since this has been sent to you guys, I've started getting in the numbers and stuff. So I kind of really need to update this sheet to give you a better picture of what we're doing. Basically what we're looking to do is to borrow 1.3 and finance it over, for the 15 years we're talking about, 15-year period, and I can do those numbers and get this. Okay.
Can I ask a clarification question?
Yes, sir.
I should know, but I don't. So we're talking about the existing boardwalk, replacing that.
Yes.
With a fixed boardwalk or with a floating?
Floating.
So there'd be a floating boardwalk across there to replace the fixed. Would there, in addition, the fingers would come off of that?
Yes, sir.
So what do you do to keep all the traffic, the foot traffic that's going from turning and going out on the fingers?
We're talking about putting gates in. If you've been to Rumbling Ball, they've got gates and something in that nature that would be aesthetically pleasing.
Because that's going to be where everybody wants to go.
So I think it should explain that this is in a sense, it's a temporary, I mean, it's a permanent installation, but it's a temporary use. And what I mean by that is that what we looked at last year was a $3.7 million improvement project that is now ballooned to 5. And so we're looking at that, but the piece that we're talking about now, the reason for doing it would be to get rid, to replace that.
The hazard.
Yeah, that permanent boardwalk. But the other part of this project that we're not addressing is a permanent walkway. It would probably be a masonry structure. It would move out. Remember the curve on Memorial Highway, and there would be a footpath, bike path kind of a thing. There'd be some parking in that area. We just this would be a future capital expenditure, but always in that plan was this boardwalk to serve the finger slips, the finger piers. And so we thought, well, let's go ahead and launch this. At least we could get that safety hazard out of the way. Let people use this temporarily as the walkway. I think if we could secure the finger piers, it would probably be okay from a security standpoint. And then it would stay there when we built the project someday inside of it, you know, to put the walkway through. So, does that make sense? So it's sort of a temporary, it's a permanent use of something, a permanent structure that has a temporary use.
And be producing revenue for us in the meantime.
This is the revenue generating portion of that whole project, Yes, and adds all these, however many slips.
Now, is this going to be placed to where that seawall would be based on?
Yes, it's been all, the geometry of it is all out into the lake.
So you don't have to move it when you go to do that seawall, to do the other development, and we don't have to waste that money doing it twice.
Thanks for clarifying that for me.
And plus, this is just not the boardwalk. It's the additional finger piers. It's the the standpipe system that we don't have now, that we would need to expand. And
That's included everything.
and there's some landside improvements to connect up. There'll be, you know, a at-grade walk on the marina side and some kind of connection down at the beach side, right? That'll stay there. It won't be.
But this year, what do you need? That's $115,400 a year. All right, we've got, you'll have how many slips that you can rent?
Additional.
Is that 4%?
4%.
The total right now is looking like 212 slips will be available. We currently rent out 74 with, my last numbers was 90 people on a waiting list.
Okay, so 212 includes the 74.
Yes, yes, sir.
We've got, how many years left on that one?
Is it 3 years, 4 years?
4 to be safe.
4
to be safe.
Probably makes sense to roll the two into one.
Yes.
And
That is in
start.
the 1.3.
That is
The balance is already
Yes, sir.
sold on the other one.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah,
that's
we did
already
roll.
rolled in.
Yes, sir.
At that point, you've got, however many boat slips you end up having out there to service.
265 is revenue.
Yeah, they'd say 116,000 a year, and our payment now is how much?
It goes down each year. The last, what was it, 70?
It's 65 in principle.
You got 212 total. After you do.
Yes.
So we take away 74 were original.
So you're about doubling your payment, but you're adding, you're over doubling. And I don't think you count on renting all those slips the first year. You may not even count on those 90 because some of them, that waiting list, they may be on the waiting list that don't really want to slip.
Right.
They just don't want to lose their spot.
Right.
So
Does boat density have to be adjusted to this?
Right now, I still believe that I believe the demand will drive it for people who are already coming here. You know, I don't really see us adding more permits, you know, or saying we're gonna sell more permits to get this done.
Yeah, I asked that question before. How many permits can be sold or we selling now that people don't have, our boat isn't house on the lake?
And
Or that's on this waiting list is boat.
I don't know, I'll get that information for you. That's forever
Somebody
changing.
pulled that one time way back, I remember it was a little less than I hoped it would be.
Yeah, I will pull that information because that list is changing. There's been some that did not renew this year. Linda's pulling some off of that list, and so I will update that list for you.
Okay. And, you know, it may make sense to do our new, model prior to the meeting on this. I know that's in the process of getting that to a to a completion where, and then look more seriously.
And see, the thing that we're studying on the model right now is commercial.
Yes.
And we have very little commercial use out of these slips. It could expand if that's what they elect doing, but most of the people that are in these slips are just residential. We've got a couple of boat mechanics and things like that, and we don't allow rentals out of the slip, out of the commercial side.
So other than our concession agreement.
Correct, yeah.
So part of some of the drivers for this, one is we have had two folks using the boardwalk that have fallen.
Yeah.
And so we know it's up, getting old, needs to be replaced. David's crew is walking that boardwalk once a week, nailing down any nails they see, replacing any boards that need to be replaced. We've had the League of Municipalities come up and review it, and he said as long as we are doing exactly what we were doing, we're in good shape. And so replacing that boardwalk has become very important.
I agree with that.
The other side is we have pin-up demand, which is revenue that we're not capturing. And so between those two items, those are the big drivers. The other thing is, I mentioned, we split the $5 million project out so that we can have a safe boardwalk. We can capture the revenue, and then phase 2 of that project is due later. But we believe the LGC will let us do this, as both Sam and Dean have said. They were all for the marina because the revenue is there. And it's a model that's easy to demonstrate. We're going to be able to handle the thing.
Does this price include taking the old boardwalk out?
Yes.
So there's not any cost here?
Hidden costs.
Unless I unfold something that none of us have thought about, we feel safe with the 1.3.
I'd like to clarify, for this year, what do you need in the CIP for this year? 300, 150?
I need that first year payment. Or what else would you need?
You would need 1.3.
You need 1.3?
For this year?
Yeah.
1.3, okay. And next year, 1.6, you don't need that.
That's right.
Right, still 1.8.
Right.
You need how much for this year?
1,300,000.
I need the full amount this year.
And you might need a little bit more for this engineering survey, I think. You know, if somebody's gonna have to pick up these plans that were done now by not an engineer, in order to get it permitted, you're gonna have to pay somebody something to do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, if we're financing it, we need just the first year's payment this year.
You budget the whole project, and then the other side, you budget the.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That service of 100,000.
Yeah, you got that committed, but you only, out of our annual income, only, $115,000. Yeah, and possibly less than that, because it will be done on day one.
Right.
Of the budget, probably later in the year.
Right.
But if you budget the 115,000, you got a little bit to play with.
We currently have 88 slips, correct?
Yes.
And 74 are being rented.
Yes.
10 are allocated to the Lakewood Tours and Beach
Yes.
group. Where are the other 4?
Those are ones that I had at one time where they would more to the ends of the two docks. And when Chris Braun was town manager, he ended up taking them away, said he didn't want people mooring at the end of the docks. So
The outside end.
Yeah, the very outside end. So those slips went away.
But then we don't have 88. Or we do.
No. If we rented those out, then we would go back up to the 88.
Do we have to have Chris come back so we can prove taking the whole forward?
So, I mean, you know,
But you got 74 now, and we got 80 on the waiting list.
Yeah.
90.
80 puts you at 138,000 a year, at $1,200 a year for space.
So
So
84.
the debt service is 115.
Yeah, the end.
84 out of the 88 are being used.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's ends up to be to have somebody that lives around the lake come be able to park there and come to, town hall.
Daily rate.
Well, in this,
Could have a daily.
Daily rental.
in this new marina, over by the water slide, there will be one finger pier that'll go out that will allow, I believe it was 20 boats. I believe that's what it was, that would allow them for day use or hourly use and able to go shopping or whatever. It will be
Without charge.
without a charge.
And the current, wooden deck, dock there for the park now, that goes away.
Yes, sir.
The cash flow would be positive, one is just 155 spaces.
Yeah, you have
Get them filled.
And the way this thing was actually designed out, it is designed to use our current marina slips incorporated into this so that we don't have any waste or getting rid of anything. They will actually be moved and used into this new design.
That's not hard to do. You got 115,000, debt service, charge $1,000 a year per slip. That's, 115 slips. Just look out.
It's actually about 12 or 1250.
It's $1,100 for property owners and it's $1,500 for non-property owners. And when I done the numbers, I just averaged it at $1,250 for every slip, and just to kind of get a
Somewhere along the line, I'd like to see a top-down picture view of this completed project with the floating docks and the floating boardwalk and finger piers and all that. As opposed to the one that we saw that was approved as part of the development program. Okay.
We can get that to you short order.
All right, moving along.
Of course, the picture's worth 1,000 words, and I'd like to see that.
Okay. So then there are no other current year in Parks and Rec. We are no more current year expenditures, but there's some back-end office renovation and trailhead parking lot. It's out 2 years, so we want
I think the only caveat.
placeholder.
We would place on this would be once we have our Parks and Rec work plan.
Yeah, then we can come back.
Office renovation, we need to consider what's gonna be the final outcome of the bridge project before we need to worry about whether we need to renovate. Like not build, there might be a building there to renovate.
Yeah, that's still a couple years out before that comes back.
Okay, are we good with that? Okay, so then that gives us to the beach and marina, right? Which are actually, this marina and boardwalk could be in the beach marina too, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I think, anyway, we're into beach marina.
Okay, with the beach marina, I've spoken with Sonia and George about what they wanted to see in the CIP, and I believe they asked for this last year also, was $20,000, and it would help them improve the big beach house, exterior of it, paint and stuff like that, and also putting a new roof on. So just dressing up the bigger beach house that they've got there, and they've asked for $20,000 to be able to do that project.
That beach house needs a lot of work, so
Yeah.
doing a little bit of time.
And it's also, this beach house is in our master plan for that town center plan of possibly being redone in a different phase from what the boardwalk and marina is, so that's something to take into consideration too. How much money do you want?
You gotta keep a roof on it.
Yeah.
Ruin everything a little bit, so I say leave it in there.
All right. Anything else? We're good? All right, thanks, Dean.
Thank y'all.
I tell us.
All right.
Yep.
The cart path repair is just a continuation. We started that as a 5-year project to go through and repair places throughout the golf course on the cart paths. We'd like to continue that. Clubhouse remodel is a kind of a revisit of thing that we've had in there for a couple of years, and that's what this is here. In speaking with Dan, when he did have the Sandwich Meister, it was called, he was able to produce fresh-made sandwiches, which is all we ever wanted to do in here, and he was able to do that without the grease trap, which surprised me because we were told that we need to have a grease trap. So we'll revisit that with the health department, but this was to allow an area to be a snack bar where we could make those fresh sandwiches, add a unisex shower for 2 reasons. Golfers do ask for that, and also for safety for me or any employee that would be using plant protectants or things on a hot day or any day. You need to go in there and take a quick shower and get cleaned off. And then it would actually move the office area. This is all existing, inside existing walls. The other thing we would attempt to do is replace the carpet and redo the flooring in the bathrooms under that plan. That's what the 11.5 is for, yeah. And I have never put it out on the bid. That's just a guesstimate. Yeah. It may be something where we can do some of the work to help, or what, I don't know. We just never got that far along.
Is the 5,000 also in the second year part of that plan, or is that something different?
That's to redo the front porch,
Oh,
where the boards are quite old. They've got steel spike marks in them, so that's been at least 20 years since that's been replaced. And it's heaving in some areas, and we really don't know what's underneath it. So we just guesstimated that also at 5,000. The study for the creek bank, this year especially with all the rain, we've had significant erosion all through mainly number 7, number 2, and number 1, where the creek runs through there. And some of the areas are starting to get close to the irrigation pipes, which is not good. Also, the pipes that are in there now are in 2 of the sections by the first green and close to the second green. Each of those is 300 feet long, and there's 2 pipes in there on each one. At the ends, especially where the head walls are holes where the pipe is completely rotted and the dirt keeps going down in, so it's a hazard. I've tried to do some things to mitigate that, but have been unsuccessful, especially with as many times as we flooded this year, in essence. Also, the cart path crossing on number 4, which has 1 pipe, we'd like to replace that with 2, if possible, so we can get good flow there, and so it's not coming over the cart path all the time, and it would be a little bit longer, so it'd be a safer crossing. And that's
study, it's not for the work.
correct.
You just do the work.
I've never.
Don't need a study.
Clint told me when we tried to replace the pipe in the cart path that we need an engineer. So I've never been involved with a study, so I have no idea what it would cost to have somebody come in there and lay that work out, because in order to do the creek banks, not just these pipe crossings, you gotta get a permit from whoever.
So there's a difference between a permit and a study. One of the things, Dale, I would want you to do is talk with Brad about this project to see if this is on.
Yeah, because that would get us to the point, I would hope, that we could lay the work out.
See the length of the work of the study. I mean, it's my understanding the pipes are a certain size, as long as you put things on the back, because you're allowed to do that. And in some places we have OGA, permit from the water quality, erosion to fix that. What always frustrates me about that is they approve everything you do, but you just have to do that process.
Right. That's why I put the money in there, just as
I think the money's correct, I'm just saying.
yeah.
I don't want to pay people to walk up and say, yeah, you just can't.
I know when course doctors were there in 2010, they received some sort of a grant from the state to do stream bank remediation. Well, they only got about 150 yards done on one side. So there could be programs available to help with some of the work. Some is pretty bad. Get you a separate program. So that's why I have that in there. You need to start somewhere.
Couple quick questions. Back to the clubhouse remodel, the 11.5, Mayor asked you about the other 5, and you said it's front porch, but then down below it, you got front porch repair for 5,000 next year again. So do you need the 5,000 up there or down at the bottom, or do you need both?
Well, to be honest, I didn't look down there.
Okay. So
My mistake.
eliminate the one on the top.
One way or the other, yeah.
Yeah, and leave it as a separate item for next year. Okay, the other thing is, you were talking earlier about the contracts, and his contract's due for renewal this year. Is that something that should be here? And the anticipated cost?
For the contract?
Yeah, he was talking earlier about the contracts regarding the dredging, and that's why dredging should be there. Should that, his contract renewal, which is actually a subsidy the town pays to keep the golf course operating, is that something that should be under the CIP?
Well, I think we need to be consistent. If the dredging probably belongs there, then this probably does too. I think we just need to set the parameters for what belongs in the CIP and just do it across the board.
Whichever, yeah, I thought we agreed it wasn't gonna go, but, I mean, they're dredging, therefore.
Right, you brought that up. And
Yeah,
so-
I did, it's the same principle.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're, just to get the capital funding, if it's not something that's, this is an asset, the golf course, and it should have a value on it. And if we're making improvements to that asset, that, am I right, Cindy? That's capital.
Yeah, those items, those improvements are.
And we don't,
But the contract, the agreement, if we do concessions, we need to do his, Lake Nona Tours, dredging.
handle it the same.
Yeah, I agree. I only mentioned it because I was I don't think it should be there, but that's a big expense coming up this year. Renewal it is. The other thing is the golf course is a recreation asset, and that should be under the Parks and Recreation of Lakeland Park as an entity. It is a recreation asset.
We can move all of that under the Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, it's just been here, because we just have that.
And that's why Dale's on the Parks and Rec board now, because of that same reason. That's where he needed to be.
We certainly can change that, put that under Parks and Recreation.
So what do we decide to do with this? Creek bank erosion to 20,000? To leave it, or?
Shane,
Yeah,
I think with Brad, and we'll talk some more.
Brad and
There, some of it down.
Dale about this. The number could possibly be right, but
The purpose of it is,
it may not be a study.
It needs to be done. It needs to be fixed.
anything else for Jim?
that's it, really easy.
Good.
Almost made 12 o'clock.
Well, we're not done. Got you on the sheet. You are, you can go have more. All right.
So we have water, sewer, and hydro, which is David.
Water, sewer.
He ain't coming up.
No, back up.
David, I'm sorry about that.
Uh-oh.
I have no problem with hydro at all.
Hydro. The only thing with hydro is that his amount is 579,000, which is a considerable.
Well, I think this hoist replacement, we need to look closer at. That's the big number of the 579. I think that's something we need to, how we're going to do that, and what we're going to pay for it, right?
I've got something I want to hand out on this. Met with David and the guys at DAM talked about hydro improvements yesterday. So we're
We ain't gonna have.
So I want you-
Look at it.
So I want you guys to take a look at this and you can kind of see over the next 5 years what kind of cost we're looking at for hydro improvements.
And every one of them's needed.
And I know we've got trouble when we look at this hoist deal. I would like to ask council to at some point allow us to get a crane company. There's several of them that do these heavy hoist trams and such in industrial plants, multi-cable types. Pay one of their engineers to come down here to match up the exact hoist. We're gonna come down here and look at it, and we make it so we've got, first thing we need to do is we need to get a ladder system up the side of it with a platform. They use them in every restaurant, there's companies that specialize those. That'll probably be a $20,000 ladder system, go up, platform when you can stand there. Get that phased in first, they should be, most of them pre-made. Separate, after you get that in there, let's hire, call one of those crane hoist companies, and that's all they do. They make these multi-ton cranes and winches for industrial plants, everything. But they come out and physically put their eyes on this, what we have.
Where we trying to hoist?
He will know, being an engineer that does this every day of the week, it's well worth the money, let him look at it and say, this is the product you need. Then you get a price from them to make that product. And then we hire a rigger or somebody to come in to change out the cables. I think we would come out a whole lot less money, even if we pay this engineer $5,000 to fly down, spend 2 days here. These guys, that's what they do for a living. Then we come here and there's 10 of them out there. That's all they do for this heavy hoist system.
So what Dave and I have talked about just recently is to have Schnabel spec out what needs to be done. They sent us a list of 6 companies that do this kind of work. So now we've got a long list. So we certainly can take proposals on replacement from these 6 companies. And I think we're probably going to get that number down.
Okay, but what I'd like to do still, let's get the right hoist that we need, a major hoist company, pay what it costs for that guy to come down and look at it. These are the guys that make this.
The guy that came out initially, and gave us that big price, which I agree is a big price. But they are a hoist and crane manufacturing company. From what he says, they go way back into the day. He actually said his dad, that was an engineer, was involved in the design of that style hoist that's there now. So I agree, we need to know exactly what's there and what's suitable, but I think we need specs to go by.
That's where I'm at. Let's get the ladder system up there first. Let's go ahead and get it so you can get up there without.
Yeah, safely.
It's safely, because that way, whoever we get out here can walk up there and stand on the platform. It should be about 30 inches below the top, so you're about waist high looking at this motor. You can work on it. Then get that done, and then get this hoist spec'd out. Because I'm looking on the internet, these hoist motors are less than $10,000. Okay, I've gone through the research. They're less than $10,000 for the hoist, and you don't have to build a frame or whatever. So I'm sitting here looking at a cost of $35,000. Now somebody's going to pay me $250,000 to just change that motor out and the cables. It's not even in the same world. So this to me is a process for doing this. I mean, you get the manufacturer that's going to make that motor, spec it out, get somebody here, do what we need to do, and then we spec it. Say, you're going to put this base motor with this cable, and you give us a price to change it out.
Why don't we get together and let's write down your thoughts, and let's go from there.
I'm for it. I think we could save ourselves.
We're all for it. We can save money.
Normally $150. I mean, that's the most ridiculous number I've ever seen.
Well,
I'll do it myself, I could do it one person at a time. It's so far out there, it just really aggravates me. I'm sorry.
so we'll guarantee we'll get a process where we can get multiple people to bid, and we'll incorporate your thoughts in the process.
I want to get a hoist engineer out here just for that first. But yeah, we'll do that.
Let's do that. Okay.
I don't wait for them.
We don't need it.
Okay. Go ahead.
What I handed out to you before we take a look at David's. What I handed out to you, we had a meeting with David, with John Wilson, with Don McCraw, and Mitchell Anderson. So we had operators and John, who's been working on the equipment, and David, and we all sat in a room and we brainstormed 4 different categories. We looked at safety. We asked the question, in order to make that place safe down there, what type of projects would we need to implement? The next one was efficiency, in order to really create an environment or operations that we know we can maximize efficiency. What would be those list of projects? We did the same thing for effectiveness. And then the last thing was the last priority, but we felt like we need to throw it in there, what we need to do to clean the place up and paint and just, it's just purely aesthetics, that's why it's last. So then we just said, what's a estimate of the cost of these? And so we brainstormed those, and then I've been taking those over the last day and just creating a mini CIP for the hydro. I've got to add a 5th year in to capture the item that's in yellow. So that's not part of this. Looking at all these projects over 4 years for the hydro side of the equation, we're already at 1.8 million. And that's over a 4-year period. So we're up to 2.3 if we include replacing the runners and impellers on the generators to maximize the efficiency. We've been told that the ones we have on there now are mid-range. They're not super low, so that's why we probably can afford to push this off a 5th year. It's very expensive. It's going to be about $250,000 a piece, according to our guess. But we're going to take this list through another round of review and see if we can get some additional eyes on this to see if we can get our numbers right and to validate basically these projects and their effect on the operation down there. But I just wanted to bring this out to show you that just the hydro side of this operation is very expensive, and about every penny we're generating down there, we can recycle back into this thing to try to raise it from the place that it's in, and it's been neglected over a number of years.
Well, that was my intent a couple of years ago when Donnie came before us and had this long list of stuff to be done. And we basically approved every bit of it and said, let's stop spending that money on trying to use it for dredging, use it for hydro. That's what we wanted to do with it, so.
The needs are there.
Did y'all get that fuel tank moved?
The propane tank? Yes, it is moved. I got with Dustin, and we went down there and looked at numerous areas to be able to locate that thing. Before we had talked about there next to our parking area, would not work under the standards of falling rocks and stuff like that. So ultimately, we we moved it down next to the pump station. It's 10 foot off of the building. They've run a new poly line across the conduit. They're actually should be in the process this morning to finish hooking the line back up. Has been relocated. I told Freeman Gas and find out what it costs for the anchor system for that tank, and they plans to anchor that thing down. I have told the state of North Carolina dam safety people that it has been moved, and so they seem to be happy.
I also found out the regulator on that is not the proper regulator for that generator that we have.
They're putting a bigger one on.
That's correct. We've never gotten the full power out of that generator.
It's this whole efficiency category that gets my attention. I think there's an untapped, huge untapped revenue stream in there. And the only caution that I had, and we've raised this before, is the FERC. And so we got to be careful that we I think the thing was if you don't change the plate, spec, the specs on the plate of the generator, I mean, I could be pretty candid about it, then you can improve the efficiency and the output without violating your FERC limit, right?
I was talking about our emergency generator.
No,
Go back up,
no.
Because it turned out, Lewis with Freeman Gas, if you ever need somebody that knows his stuff, he's the man. And I work with Lewis a lot on the generators I put in. And we got discussions, Jerry said we're losing that tank it down. He says, turned out we were only providing about 40% of the capacity and fuel flow for the generator. We could have it on regulator.
And they have got, when they told us that, I said, who what it needs on there, because it's critical that that thing works. You know, it's no good if it don't. I mean, it's always worked, but after they said that, I asked the question, you know, and they said they had noticed with the generator running in the past, that, you know, like it would stumble, and everybody always said it was the pumps coming on in the pump station when it wasn't starting for fuel.
Now scrutinizing everything in town through a different lens. And boy, I tell you what, you're finding also.
You and I ran into that several times. We've got that with the
They would have already been done had they not ran into that part, that held them up to get some parts and
The
stuff.
problem, I'm glad to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Lewis is the man on the propane gas. I mean,
They seem to have done us a good job. That's moved, that's off the list.
I use it about 6 times a year, mainly regulated problems.
Well, I would say you've done, I wasn't aware you really had done this. You've done a great first step here. This is something that's been badly needed. You've done a really good job of getting the right people in the room and focusing on the right stuff. You've got it broken out, I think, in an appropriate way, so keep going. Keep going.
So we'll try to integrate this into the electric side.
So use that one for the hydro CIP versus what we had.
I would recommend that. So Dave, I just need to integrate this into Sam's document.
Okay. So this is the hydro CIP. What about the dams?
Well,
Where are we with that?
Yeah, well, I think the Schnabel report is going to tell us what we need to do to program the structure improvements, and we won't know that until the report's done.
And where is that going to go? Is that part of a general fund capital, or is it part of the hydro capital? Do you know, Sam?
I guess a lot depends on how much it's going to be. We can rationalize why it should be a general fund expense. If it's a large expense, we put it in the general fund.
So then we're not hamstrung in a sense by the enterprise nature of the hydro fund, where we can't go outside for geo.
It's a structure rather than.
So we probably want to get it outside of that, right? Or even into its own fund. What would be wrong with that? We can set that up.
Major infrastructure, just general, I would think.
Just doesn't have a revenue stream.
It's close.
And it has a revenue, yeah. And so this, all right, so that's common, that's a big piece, that's gotta be a big piece of this capital budget, right? All right, so then, thanks, that gets us to water and sewer, all right? So, there's not a whole lot in here yet.
Page 70 and 71, I believe that David just has one water capital expense Firefly Cove well system. Does that sound right? Yeah.
Do you not have the one they gave us this morning?
I gave you the wrong one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not it. So it's in the book?
Yes, it's in 70.
Okay. this is water only, right?
And the only thing we had in there was the Firefly Code. That's basically, most of you are aware of that system out there, the Firefly Code water system is running solely on one well with no backup. That well goes down, we've got problems.
We had two, but one of them was bad.
Yes, one of them was contaminated or whatever. So we have money in this fiscal year for engineering, for engineers to come and look and tell us what's possible for us to do, because it's all state regulated, to possibly even be able to interconnect the Chimney Rock and Firefly Code system. There's already an interconnection made with valves. The big deal I think that we will find at the end of the day is the elevation of the reservoirs. Chimney Rock Reservoir and Firefly Code, 300, basically 300-foot difference in elevation. So I think what they would probably come back with is something like a booster station. Yep, to be able to pump the water up to the Firefly Code. But if that was possible and engineered and approved through the state, then you would have numerous wells feeding that one system, you know, taking care of Firefly, Chimney Rock, Lake Lewis, and Lake Lewis, you know, all being one system. I think it would change over, it'd probably be permitted as one water system then rather than two. But it being a public water supply, you have to go through an engineer, it has to be signed off on and approved by the state, so.
Which things?
The one at Firefly. I think 300 foot roughly.
So the 75,000 is basically take care of that.
Well,
connect Firefly with Chimney Rock, right?
I'm hoping. I don't have anything back from the engineers, so that, but from what I have been told by a couple of people, that could very easily be a going rate to put in a booster station to make it do it.
Yeah, I was just wondering why would we not just valve off the existing well if we got in trouble and just use the Chimney Rock well and just totally valve off that one and let that one supply. In other words, you wouldn't need to pump it up to the tank.
You got a house right at the very top. That's what makes it tough there. One house, trying to throw beside the tank. So you gotta get water all the way up to that.
Possibility of more houses.
Yes, that's right. There's a development up there now. So
there's development potential.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's what makes it so tough is you have to supply to that one house. So that's kind of where we're at.
It was fairly flat then, it's been the rest with David's learning.
I am. I'm not to believe what Shannon says in a public session.
And that sort of then leaves the big hole which we can't yet fill until we have some better numbers coming out of our consultant for the sewer replacement system. That's a big number.
And the dam.
Huh?
And the dam.
Yes.
And again, this month, the 1st of March, we'll have Schnall's report.
Yeah.
See, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Hold on a minute.
So on the sewer, just to kind of let you know where we are on sewer. So Brown has sent the engineering report in. The state has said, hey, you need to change this, you need to recalibrate this, you need to. So long list, and so basically sent an email to Brown, spoke to the mayor, we sent an email to Brown, said, look, we need some dates. These things are going to get done. We can't even get to the design piece, which is going to determine the cost until we get this engineering report finalized and finished. So that's what we're asking. The biggest thing, as the mayor keeps pointing out, is these flows. Brown has to get the flows projected accurately because that determines design. Design is going to determine cost. So where's this big number coming from? Because we projected the flows that were very large. So thankful our student mayor has been on top of that, and so we're pushing back and trying to get those numbers for them.
Yeah, we'll get them, one way or the other. We have to get them ourselves. We do have a motion on the table. Is there a second to the motion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign.